Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala khatimil anbiya. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. We will be talking in very brief terms about what is the meaning and methodology of Dawah. The word Dawah essentially means to call, to invite, to welcome. But call towards what? Invite towards what? For that, it could be a call for spirituality. It could be a call for nationalism, ethnic, racial, or of any other kind. It could be a call for development. Therefore, the World Trade Organization and many other bodies, they call for economic development and progress. And they say, we invite you to follow our policies. It could be a matter of intellectualism, that you talk about any aspect, whether Islam or any topic that comes to your mind, intellectually, and try to analyze and make your point very clear. So the term Dawah or the call or invitation can be used for various things. In what sense we use this term? We want to find out from the Quran. Therefore, the first Quranic reference, that is from Surah An-Nahl, ayah number 125. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil-hikmati wal-maw'izati al-hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan, which means that you should call people toward the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wisdom and with most appropriate speech. And when you want to dialogue, when you want to exchange views, when you want to have a kind of discourse, it has to be with most perfect manner. In the light of this Quranic ayah, first thing that we can see is that Dawah means calling towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll see in next few references what is meaning of this calling toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that you find in Surah Al-Ahzab that the Prophet, peace be upon him, has been given the title Da'iyan ilallah bi'iznihi wa sirajam munira, that he is one who is calling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which was said earlier also in Surah Nahl. We looked into it a while ago. And at the same time, a bright, illuminated, enlightened guide for the mankind. This term again is used in Surah Yusuf, where it is said, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. Again, إِلَى اللَّهِ, أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ, calling towards Allah. But qualified by basira, not just a matter of a memorized lesson which you repeat in the name of Dawah. A sermon you have memorized, a book you have memorized, a speech you have memorized, which you keep on giving mechanically, like a tape recorder. No. This is with basira, with understanding, in-depth understanding. Having said that, the Quran again tells us that while the prophets, all prophets of Allah, they have been inviting toward the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now with Islam, it's not just prophets, but you as a community, Muslims as an ummah, they have been given this task Therefore, the Quran says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يَدْعُونَ, that you are an ummah which invites people toward ethics, morality, good, virtue, bir. And at the same time, you are the ummah, you are the people who are supposed to stand up against injustice, exploitation, oppression, zulm, taghut, so on and so forth. And that's what makes you a whole ummah involved in this noble work of dawah. In the light of what has been said, let's look into this ayah of the Quran, which again tells us about what is the meaning of this term and its implications. In Hamim Sajda, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that who is better in his speech? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Again, da'wah ilallah. But added to it is a very important aspect. وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. And at the same time, this person who is calling towards Allah is also applying the dawah in his behavior, in his actions. And then it says, وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And then he makes it explicit, visible, that he belongs to Muslims. It is not by wearing a prayer hat. It's not by wearing a specific dress, but amal salih. His amal salih, his behavior which is ethical, moral, based on the Quran and Sunnah, reveals to everyone that he is from the Muslims. He stands for Muslim behavior. You may have a very nice sermon, a lecture, in which you talk about generosity, humbleness, Allah consciousness, Allah's remembrance. And when you finish it, and you frown, and you shout, and you lose your temper, and you are not acting what you were preaching, then you contradict this Quranic ayah. Then the person who claims to be da'iyah is not a da'iyah, he is acting like a da'iyah. So the ayah tells us very clearly, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنِّي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That the person who can be better than a person who talks about inviting people toward Allah, coupled with amal salih, good act, good behavior, and at the same time he does not hide his Islamicity. Muslims in crisis situations quite often raise the question, we are targeted. Our women, if they go out with a scarf, they are mocked. Is it not better for us to act like others? Forget about hijab, forget about your appearance. The Quran tells you very clearly, you are an ummah who has whatever in the heart in his behavior. Iman is not something hidden, but Iman means what is visible by way of your Islam. It continues and tells us what is good and what is bad, sayya and what is hasana. These two things cannot be equal. But when you are trying to remove sayya, wrong, unethical acts, taghut, zulm and kufr, then how you are supposed to act? Itfa billati hiya ahsan. Then you have to repel it with the most appropriate manner. Even if you want to say, down with capitalism, down with Uncle Sam, then don't say it in a bad language. First prepare yourselves so you are strong enough. Talk in a manner which may correct the person. Not just emotionalism, but logic, reason, homework done. Therefore, it tells us, idfa billati hiya ahsan. Then what will happen if you are doing your job properly? Then you will see the results. The one who was your bitter enemy, whom you wanted to kill, becomes waliyun hamim, your very close associate. Because you have taken an approach of wisdom, hikmah. You have done your defense and your presentation in most appropriate manner. Idfa billati hiya ahsan. But what kind of people can prove what the Quran demands? The following ayah tells you very clearly. This kind of job and task which we expect from you as da'iyah is only possible when you have sabr and when you have the capacity to possess good and at the same time be extremely wise and knowledgeable. It's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to develop that talent, that tolerance, that understanding, which does not present you as a weak person, as a strong person, but not with pride and arrogance, with humbleness and kindness and love. That makes your dawah effective. That makes hearts of those who are like stone melt. The Quran tells us that if this book was revealed on mountains, some of the rock will burst and water will gush out of it. But some of the hearts of people are so tough that whatever you say cannot change them. It is same hearts who are changed with the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, when you are giving dawah and you are seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those hearts which are like rock, they start melting. Your enemies start becoming waliyun hamim. So, in these ayat, we find the Quran telling us about what is the meaning of dawah and some reflections on what kind of methodology you must follow and develop. To make it very brief, first and foremost, the purpose of dawah is to liberate people from all man-made philosophies. That whatever human beings have put forth as solutions for mankind, capitalism, socialism, Marxism, utilitarianism, you think of any kind of philosophy and everything is there. All these man-made philosophies create disturbance, imbalance, injustice in society. Therefore, the call, dawah, is to liberate mankind from man-made philosophies. Secondly, to create unity in life. When you say you are calling toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what it means is you want one and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of mankind, to be recognized by human beings as their ultimate ruler. When He is the ultimate ruler, when He is Malik, when He is Khaliq, when He is protector and promoter, Rabb, and so on and so forth, then you are creating unity in life. Then you cannot have two lords, a Rabb of Mal and a Rabb of spirituality. You invite people toward one and only Rabb who nourishes you intellectually, physically, spiritually, culturally. Think of any area. He tells you what kind of state, what kind of culture, what kind of personality, what kind of trade and business. In every area of life, He guides you. And when you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone as your ruler and guide, then you have created unity in life. Acceptance of Islam in totality, not simply on Friday, but on every day. Not simply on a specific 5 times a day, but all times of the day and night. Therefore, total acceptance. And lastly, it stands for an ethical social change. That whatever exists around you in society is to be transformed and changed ethically and morally. Ethics does not mean simply smiling, but ethics means how to behave. Therefore, you have a business ethics, where if you show a product, same product should be given to me when I ask in bulk. Not that you show me a specimen, deliver something different. Business ethics. Political ethics. When you come to your constituency and make a very fiery speech, don't make those promises you cannot deliver. Your social ethics, that if you want to talk to women, how to talk with them. If they want to talk to you, what should be their manner of talking? If you walk in the street, should you walk with pride and arrogance, or you walk with a pace which is humble? You think of any area of life, and Islam provides an ethics, a way of doing things for that area of life. Therefore, the call is toward, this is the purpose of Dawah. Let's try to find out how to give Dawah. And for that, the word we use, methodology, has 2 meanings. One, it stands for a systematic, gradual, holistic change. Methodology means when you have put down what are steps to be taken. When you want to have a gradual change, when you want to have a holistic change, a total change, comprehensive change, when you want to have this change through a system of education and training, you develop talent of people, educate them, enlighten them, advise them how to use their capabilities in a better way. Methodology has to be based on the Quran and the Prophetic Sunnah. You can think of selling your product by following a management guru. Open the book of management guru and he tells you how to sell your product. But is this what Islam wants? Islam wants you to approach people, sell your ideas, make those acceptable to them, but in the way as the book and the Prophet ﷺ both have wanted. Not that you create your own mental ways of doing it and think you are doing right. Therefore, a methodology has to confirm these two basic principles or basic guides which are given to us in the form of the Quran and prophetic life. Now, what is going to be the methodological steps? For that, we find first and foremost identification of dawah. What is that you want to deliver, convey and communicate? Do you want to call people for African nationalism, European nationalism, American nationalism? Or you want to call them toward path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Identify what is your dawah. Are you calling them to just increase spirituality and abandon materiality? Or you want to call them to become materially strong with a vacuum of spirituality? What kind of dawah you want to give? Then who is the da'iyah, the preacher, the caller, the field worker, the social activist? Who is this person? What kind of da'iyah you want? Someone who says what he never does? Or you want to have someone whose qawl and amal, speech and action coalesce, go together? What kind of da'iyah? Someone who has memorized a few Quranic passages and some passages from other books and very quickly repeats those, and you think this is da'iyah, or what? Thirdly, who are the subjects, madu? Whom do you want to approach? You may travel 7,000 miles and end up in a masjid and then tell people how to pray. Some people think this is dawah. Who are your subjects? Whom do you want to give dawah? Just Muslims? Something, no, that's not dawah. Dawah means go to the marketplace with a megaphone, stand up there and call anyone in the street for dawah. Unless you are doing it, you are not doing dawah. Some people think, no, even that's not dawah. Dawah means just write an essay on Islam, distribute it. This is dawah. So, but why you are doing it? For whom? Who are your subjects? Whom do you want to address? These three questions are to be addressed when we talk about methodology. Dawah is for the servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ubudiyah, to become abd, to become Abdullah, Allah's servant, one who serves only interests which Allah wants him to serve. Not interest of nation, family, tribe, any so-called professional community, but essentially serving what is the interest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What kind of da'iyah you want? Someone who is abd, Allah's servant, by his behavior, by his way of speech, by his actions. You should be able to identify that he is an abd. Whom do you want to invite? The whole of humanity. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. that this Quran we reveal in the month of Ramadan for the guidance of humanity and as touchstone between what is right and wrong. Therefore, your addressee, your mad'u, are the whole of humanity. You cannot confine it to just Muslims and think dawah means giving dawah to Muslims or only to non-Muslims. No, the whole of humanity. How it is to be done? We said earlier that وَعَمَلَ صَالِحًا in Surah Hamim As-Sajda. The same emphasized here in Al-Baqarah, that do you invite people for virtue and good? Therefore the Quran says that you are talking a lot, inviting people on virtue, but you forget yourselves. أَتَأْمُرُونَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ. You forget your own selves while you are calling them to Allah's obedience and service. Everything you do reveals you are a rebel, while everything you talk reveals you are a servant. How come? Why this disparity? A da'iyah has to have this very important attribute of not only talking and inviting people, but also he should be able to practice that. Next, you find the Quran telling us that you have to communicate the message, and for that it tells us, it tells us that the Prophet, and not only he, but earlier prophets as well, they have been commanded to communicate whatever is given to them. So the Quran says, Ya ayyuhar rasulu balligh ma unzila ilayka. Don't be choosy, don't try to select what will please your quote-unquote client. You have to give Islam in totality. Don't try to defend in the name of defending Islam, hiding facts. If people are unhappy about jihad or about women's status, then don't try to make compromises on that. Let that be understood properly and let that be explained properly to people. Then start with those who are near you. Unfortunately, we always start with those who are at farthest distance. You may travel thousands of miles to give da'wah, but you never travel 2 or 3 feet toward your own parents, relatives, children, wife, neighbors. We have our own conception of dawah. Dawah means I should leave my family and go away thousands of miles and give nice sermons. But the Quran tells us, Prophet, peace be upon him, is commanded, you stand up, be firm, and call your near relation. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, your near relatives to be invited. Therefore, it has to start with those who are near to you and not those who are at the farthest end. Then the methodology also tells us that you have to make your message visible and known for the whole of humanity. And then your speech has to be extremely polite and kind. Look for the context. The context is that Sayyidina Musa and Harun, they are asked to go and talk with George Bush of their time. But they are not told to go and make faces, mock, show fists, curse him. But the Quran says, Izhaba ila Fir'auna. You have it tasniya, you too. Both of you go toward Fir'aun, because he has become transgressor. He has become very aggressive, rebellious. But with such a rebel, what should you do? فَقُولَ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Use the most appropriate and polite speech. Have you ever thought, if one single drop of water falls down on a rock every 10 seconds, what happens to rock? It makes a hole there. Nothing can be more soft than a drop of water. The Quran tells you very clearly, فَقُولُوا قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Therefore, your expression, your way of doing dawah has to be extremely appropriate and polite. You cannot just shout, rebuke, curse, but you have to make sure whatever you are saying is going deep in the heart. It should penetrate, it should proliferate, it should be able to convey the meaning which you want to be shared with your people. Then the Quran tells us that your methodology should not use force, therefore no compulsion, like Rafiddin. And then what I said earlier from Surah Hamim as-Sajda, that exemplary character is to be developed. And then it tells us that when you are doing this work of dawah, then it has to be done with patience. Not that we have had our organization created for 10 years and we have hardly 65 members. So you are frustrated, depressed. Prophets of Allah worked for many, many years, and yet they could not yield expected results. Therefore, the Quran says that when you are going to do this da'wah, then two things must be observed. Tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bis sabr. Wasiyah, inviting people, advising them, guiding them with haqq, and at the same time with persistence, continuous effort, unfailing effort, never trying to think I have done my job and now I should take rest. On the other hand, whether it's morning or evening, night or day, you have to get involved. Even when you are sleeping, your mind should work. How should I give dawah to this person who has never heard Islam before, who is always angry with Muslims, who has no interest in making his life better? How should I talk to him? What kind of language? What kind of examples? How I am going to start conversation with him? Your mind must be working all the times, focusing on your addressees, those whom you want to approach. Therefore, dawah does not mean a manual of Dawah which is prepared by one person or a group of persons, and you just follow that manual step by step. On the other hand, it means that you are able to develop for each individual an appropriate way of giving Dawah. Therefore, Dawah methodology is essentially art of Dawah. An art of Dawah cannot be just reproductive. You cannot just reproduce whatever you hear from others. Some du'at, some preachers speak, dress, act just like some other people whom they think are good du'at. That is not art of Dawah. Art of Dawah means when you are able to create for yourselves appropriate methodology in view of your people. If you want to talk to someone who is fond of football and you talk about cricket to him, you think he will be listening to you? You have to understand with whom you are talking. You don't have just one single memorized lecture which you repeat in 90 places with same body language, with same gestures, showing hands or Quran in one hand and talking. No, you have to have for every single group of people a new way of addressing. That's what makes Dawah an art. Otherwise, it becomes essentially a mechanical activity. And as a mechanical activity, it does not succeed in results. Therefore, when we talk about Dawah and its methodology, it's a long process. It's not something which you can acquire in a course of 1 month, but it's an ongoing struggle, an ongoing educational process in which every single minute you spend is essentially a self-education. When you approach people and they do not respond to your call, then don't blame them. Don't say, listen, I spent so much time and yet the person is so unimpressive, disinterested. No, try to find out what was wrong with me. Did I select proper language? Did I select proper occasion? Did I present myself in a manner which was heard properly? Or I just tried to read a book or look into my notes and repeated the same thing. So Dawah methodology cannot be just defined in one or the other term, but it is an ongoing process of learning in which you definitely discover the most appropriate way when you have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself guides you. You just feel as if some revelation has come to your mind. How should I do it? And then you have the answer. Therefore, there are principles which we can get from the Quran, but in the light of these principles, for each kind of situation, you shall have to develop a different model. Don't try to imitate one typical model for all occasions of Dawah. Any questions?